talking. So I'd like to talk about some guidelines for closing down the fall early learning assessment administration. We've shared this guidance in previous years. I always like to cover it just to clear up any confusion and just to emphasize that we are still sticking with the same guidelines. So currently, the reporting requirements for ODE and ODJFS licensed programs are only for the children that are funded through the Early Childhood Education Grant or children who are receiving preschool special education services. So those are the two program types and the two grants or funding services of children that are required to have data reported. What data is required? Only the 10 required learning progressions is required for reporting. And the warehouse systems that we use to collect that data are EMIS and EAS. If you're not sure which data system you report to, we can provide that information. It's on our webpage. I do want to emphasize, though, that all programs may use the early learning assessment. If you are using the early learning assessment as your comprehensive assessment for all children, we support that, and we would encourage you to do so. However, you do not need to report unfunded children to EMIS or EAS. However, if you do report those children, nothing's going to happen. So, for example, if you have a child who is not an ECE funded child or who is not receiving preschool special education services, but you are using the ELA as your comprehensive assessment for that child, and you're using the KReady system, you're going to have data for that child. And perhaps that data gets added to your student information system, such as Dazzle or PowerSchool, when you're doing your reporting for the fall. If you have those children and they're included in the reporting, that's perfectly acceptable. But we are not checking for those children. If you have any other questions about that, you feel free to reach out to us at the department and we can clarify that. But once again, these are the only requirements for what gets reported into EMIS or EAS. And we'll talk about the dates as far as when you would be reporting that data here in just a little bit. I'm going to pass it over to Kim.
Thanks, Elizabeth. So many of you may have noticed a change in the way we're operating the data collection this school year. Overall, the assessment window hasn't changed. Teachers can enter student data into the KReady system that started on August 15th through November 14th. However, this year, the ability to enter student data will end on November 14th at 11:59 p.m. Very similar to how the data collection for the KRA closes. You may wonder why we chose to have the ELA mimic the KRA in the data collection closing. As we've begun reviewing and analyzing data at the state level, there have been issues with data discrepancies for many reasons. Possibly a data manager pulled the learning progression score report prior to all teachers entering scores and there were scores missing. Or maybe a teacher went in after the district had provided a cutoff date to enter data and entered additional information skewing those learning progression score reports. All in all, we wanted to have the same processes for both assessments, the ELA and the KRA, in hope of having better data for programs, district, and the state. So where we are right now, on November 14th at 11:59, that's when data for the ELA fall data collection is due. After that data entry window closes, data managers will be able to run those student transfers if necessary, so cleaning up the demographic data. And then that's through November 21st. So there's kind of a data manager cleanup window. Remember, at this time, teachers will not be able to enter any additional data. On November 22nd, learning progression score reports, which are what are reported, will be available to run for submission into EMIS or EAS. Now, so that's where we are right now with fall administration. So what's going to happen in the spring? In the spring, a new data collection token will be available for the spring assessment windows. Don't panic. Your teachers are already loaded in the system. Your students are already loaded into the system. You will only need to upload the enrollment file for the spring assessment window before teachers will be able to enter data in the spring, beginning on February 15th, 2020. We understand that this is different than what normally occurs, and we suggest downloading your current enrollment file, so if there are no changes, you can simply upload the same file again with the new data token. We will provide additional support and guidance in January as we move toward the spring assessment. The big thing to understand, though, is that with the fall collection date, here's where we are with EMIS and EAS reporting, and then I'm going to give you kind of a quick summary of where we are in the fall right now. So EMIS reporting dates are found in the EMIS calendar. It says right on the screen, EMIS reporting dates may change at any time. So I suggest knowing how to get to the EMIS calendar, whether it's getting on our website, the ODU website, and in our little search bar at the top, if you just search EMIS calendar, the current one will come up and you will see the most up-to-date dates. But as of now, today, the fall assessment data for EMIS is due by March 6, 2020. In the spring when the spring assessment data is available, that data will be due into EMIS by August 28th, 2020. Now, EAS, if you report your data into EAS, you can find the directions and dates for reporting in the fiscal year 20 grantee manual. Data for both assessment windows must be entered by June 30th. So a quick recap. Here's where we are. Your teachers observed and collected data on all the students' skills, knowledges, and behaviors, SKBs. They did that from September 15th through November. Oh,
That should be August.
sorry, that should be August. August 15th through November 14th. I missed a month. I'm going back in time. Teachers determine their ratings and enter their ratings in the Bridge Form or KReady system. If you're using KReady, they need to be submitted no later than November 14th at 11:59 p.m. After that, your data manager is going to collect the Bridge Form or generate the learning progression score report for EMIS or EAS. Data managers, you're going to have time until November 21st if there's any student transfers, if you need to add any demographic data that you could use either internally or you need to do for reporting purposes. And then learning progression score reports will be available beginning November 22nd. And we will send out a reminder when those are available that you can start running those reports.
We want you to make sure that whether you're using the Bridge Form or the KReady system, confirm that all data has been entered for preschool children. Teachers have until November 14th. If you're using a local deadline, make sure that's communicated clearly with teachers and program staff. And then maybe allow for some flexibility if a child happens to demonstrate a skill, knowledge, or behavior in the next week or so. If the teacher wants to enter that data, they can still do that. And we would encourage you to allow teachers to do that, even if you have some hard stops prior to the end of the window. We know programs sometimes like to have earlier dates so that they can get things accounted for. So right now would be a good time to look and see what has already been entered and what's missing.